Rebound game for Giannis Antetokounmpo, 35 and 16 to be exact. As the Bucks finish a 3-1 road trip, they've won 5 of 6 overall, but it got a little sweaty for them late when OKC went on an 8-0 run. A little uncomfortable for Milwaukee.
Yeah, we've seen a few teams tonight that struggled. The Sixers had their issues down the stretch and closing out the Hornets, and then you saw it again tonight with that OKC team, who they've been pretty competitive this season. It's been fun to watch, but by the same token, that's kind of when you're the big dog, and Milwaukee is the defending Eastern Conference regular season champs. They're going to get everybody's best. And I still marvel at how impressive Giannis has been all season long. Bigger picture, I do think Malcolm Brogdon is going to be a concern for them in terms of replacing what he gave them. Wesley Matthews Jr. just doesn't seem to be clicking yet. It's early, and it's a new system. There's a transition period, but they're going to have him play a lot better if they want to have a chance to win that Eastern Conference.
And Bud's going to have to make some adjustments. If teams start to do like they did to him in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Speaking of Giannis, but I'd be pissed off right now if I was Billy Donovan, because that three-point shot that Brook Lopez just hit should not have counted. I mean, you catch the ball, you get to shuffle your feet. That's an obvious advantage game.
Yep.
And with 3 referees on the floor, somebody has to be watching the feet.
Let's go through both of the big threes late. There were several of them, but first of all, the Danilo Gallinari three that finished the 8-0 run to tie up the game here. And you could tell, we were joking about it, he wanted the shot right there. Yeah. Decided to go out and take it. And at that point, he was 1 of 8 from three-point range when he released that ball.
Yeah, he made that one count.
So that tied the game up, but on the possession you were just speaking about, a moment later, watch Brook Lopez's left foot. He picks it up just a little bit, scoots it over. That should be a travel. We'll wait to see what the officials say in the 2-minute report.
Why you got to
tomorrow.
wait? I can tell you what they're going to say.
I have a pretty good idea, but
travel.
Officially, we have to wait.
Yeah, it should have been called.
Probably going to say should have been a travel. And then down the stretch, Gallo again.
Just off the back.
Never shy, but off the back rim. And the Bucks get the win. They shot nearly 57% in this game. So offensively, they were good. Turned it over a ton. And if you weren't with us earlier, they lacked Chris Middleton for most of the night. He suffered a left thigh contusion and left the game, played just 23 minutes, had 10 points along the way.
Yeah, and that's huge for them to be able to pull that out. He's their second best player, and a big part of what they do on the offensive end as well as the defensive end. And so to miss him, but to still be able to pull that game off, that's huge for the Bucks.
What kind of adjustments do you think the Bucks will have to make to avoid what Brian was talking about in the playoffs next season? When they're going to do what people have always done to Giannis. When it comes to playoff time, they're going to load up against him, try to force him to be a shooter, or perhaps force someone else to beat them.
Well, some of the things you can do is take the ball out of his hands at the top. And we talk a lot about in basketball, you never want 5 sets of eyes defensively to be locked in on you. And so if you can get Giannis on the move, especially on that baseline, where you're running actions where when he gets it, the defense isn't set. And obviously if you've got that three-point shooting out there, he doesn't need a ton of time. But it's tough, even for a guy of his caliber. A lot of what we see now, like, you don't have time to prepare for Giannis in the regular season.
Right.
Like, Billy Donovan will come in this morning and talk about some stuff. But until you've seen that force coming at you, it's hard to adjust to that. When you get in the regular season, we're going to play 7 times. We're going to have opportunities to load the basketball and really force him to have to play in a crowd. And so you want to put him in situations where he's on the move, where you're running misdirection action, strong side, maybe having him on the weak side. And so when he gets those opportunities, because he only needs one dribble to be able to get
anywhere,
there, from anywhere in that half court. But if he can take that one dribble where he doesn't have to worry about the help, I think he's an improved passer. I think he's a willing passer. And I do think also, as much as Bud's got to, Giannis has to improve. And that's the thing about the postseason. We always say, the regular season tells you who you want to be, but the postseason tells you who you are. And I thought that postseason showed him, I got to get better to be able to make shots, because he's really the only superstar in our league that is not a consistent jump shooter when you talk about perimeter-oriented players. So I think both guys are going to have to figure out ways to maximize what he's capable of doing, and then also seeing how that roster fills out. It's still early.
He's got to improve. They've got to come up with some plans B, C, and D for particular offensive sets. I was encouraged, and if I were a Bucks fan, I'd be encouraged to see that they posted up Brook Lopez in that opening week game against the Houston Rockets when they put P.J. Tucker on him. He was an all-star as a post-up player. Why not take advantage if they're going to put a defender on him like that? The Lakers have won 7 straight games now. Are you a believer that they're as good as this record?
I am. First of all, every night that they step on the floor, they have probably the 2 best players that are playing in the game on their team. And then when you add the defensive prowess that this team has added this year, adding Avery Bradley, Danny Green, Anthony Davis, you also have Caruso, who can D up, KCP, who's a good defensive player, JaVale, Dwight Howard protecting the rim, and Frank Vogel, who's known for his defensive game planning. And so they bought into that. And then offensively, I don't worry about this team. With LeBron playing the point, you can always throw him and Anthony Davis in a 2-man game, and they can figure the rest of it out. But their defense is for real, and it showed in their record.
Number 1 rated defense in terms of efficiency for the LA Lakers, who come in at 7-1. And you see the difference between last year and this year. They've improved offensively from 24th to 17th, still middle of the pack offensively, but best in terms of a defensive rating, net rating as well. Is there any, I mean, it's too early to start asking this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. It's November. Are there pieces that they'll need before a playoff run coming in April, assuming everybody is healthy between now and then?
Yeah, the ones that aren't healthy. In essence, getting Rondo back integrated and figuring out, okay, what's his role going to be with this roster? Figuring out Kuzma, is he going to be their 6th man? Is he going to be kind of an instant offense guy for them, which is probably where they're going to lean. But then you want to establish, I think they've established their defensive identity, and we know who their 2 culprits are going to be offensively initially with Davis and obviously LeBron, but we still haven't seen what their total identity is going to be on that side of the ball. And that's going to be somewhat of a challenge for a guy like Frank Vogel, who's not known for offense, right? I think the advantage he's got is he's got 2 of the best basketball minds playing when you talk about LeBron and Davis and obviously Rondo as well. So I think I want to see what their ceiling is offensively. I think their defense is going to serve them well moving forward. But offensively, will they go to another level? That's going to tell me whether or not this team has a chance to be not just a championship caliber team, but they could be a great team, because there's a lot of teams right now that are all solid, but I don't see a lot of teams that I feel like have a chance to be great this year.
They haven't shot the ball all that well from 3-point range. Where else can they get better offensively as the season goes on and guys get to know each other a little better?
Well, I think it actually works out to their advantage that they play at somewhat of a slow pace, and with their defense being what it is, they're going to, take possessions off of both teams' side in terms of offensively. And I think that that's going to work in their favor as their half-court execution gets better, as they get more familiar with one another as the season goes on. And the pace is slow, which Frank Vogel's teams have always been known for. Like I said, I think that that'll work out in their favor. Offensively, I don't think that they're going to be a team. They're longer in the tooth at most of the positions, and I don't think that they're going to get up and down and run with those teams that play at a fast pace. But they know that they can get a bucket inside with Anthony Davis. They can put him and LeBron in pick-and-roll games. They do have the spacing now because they've added a lot of shooting to this team, and they have great size. And so when they do miss, they have guys in Dwight Howard, in Anthony Davis, in JaVale McGee that can get on the offensive boards, and they have been pounding teams that have tried to play small against them.
22nd in the league so far, so bottom third in the NBA. All right, much more to get to here on a Sunday night. Coming up, the 4-game series. Last year, Denver wins game number 1 for this time around. Jokic, 2 straight game winners after an early part of the season where the Nuggets were winning games, but the discussion was really about how engaged he looked. There were some games he didn't take a bunch of shots. Last 2 games, I think 22 and 23 field goal attempts. What is more important to you, the number of shots or just the way he goes about the game?
Yeah, I don't know that he's the kind of guy that's going to get 20, 25 every night. I don't think that fits his personality.
Right.
He's more of a guy. He reminds me in some respects of Rasheed Wallace. A guy who kind of just wants to get his through the flow of the offense. Now, you've seen him be more aggressive the last couple games, and because their bench hasn't been quite as good, I think that's going to be important for them. But they've been successful by having balance. He's been their best player, but they've had other guys that have been productive as well. Thus far this year, even though the record's really good, they just don't seem to be clicking the way they did last season. I think some of that is because the expectations have changed now. They kind of have a bullseye on their back, and they're getting everybody's best performance.
And Will Barton has talked about how they need Jokic emotionally invested. How does that manifest itself on the floor? As a teammate or as a coach, how do you know the guy is emotionally invested?
Well,